Are you leading your life? Or are you just accepting it by reacting to all the things that come your way? See, every day, a silent enemy quietly steals away the purpose and the energy from values-driven people. Here, we call it the drift. It leaves you feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. The solution isn't more efficiency or a new time management hack. No, it requires self-leadership. Because the truth is, the hardest person you will have to lead is the one in the mirror. Well, welcome to Lead Your Life. I'm your host, Nick Mazey. Here, we focus on the 1% shifts that you can make to lock in your daily choices into deep alignment with your core values and true purpose. Stop drifting, my friend. Live your values and start leading your life. Let's dive in. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Lead Your Life podcast. Look, let's go ahead and get right into it. I want you to open up this week's calendar or to-do list. Look at it. Is there any white space left on it? Or is the list just a mile long? Or is it completely hijacked by back-to-back meetings, other people's emergencies, commitments, and endless notifications and just things you got to check off and do? You know, if every single hour of your week is pre-allocated and it's someone else's agenda, then let's be honest. You know, you're not leading your life. You're basically operating as a highly paid hostage, and you're really being run by the drift. You know, think about this. When you pull into your driveway, you know, at the end of the day, are you completely drained? You know, have you hit maybe some professional goals, KPIs? You checked the things off. You did the punch list. You ran things on the job site well. You know, the boss thinks you're doing great, but you have zero mental or emotional energy left for your spouse, the kids, or your true purpose of calling. If you're feeling that drained and all those things, you know, the spouse, the kids, you know, or even your real purpose, you know, that passion that you have, you know, if they're getting your leftovers, then the drift has got you. And let's be honest, you're probably not leading your life well. Well, I'm not trying to start off by being just, you know, a Debbie Downer or really negative or get in your case, but hey, I'm going to be pretty direct. I'm going to be pretty direct with you. You're not alone in this. You know, and I've been there and I have to watch it or I'll get there too, because the drift is insidious, it's sneaky, and that's why we have to work together to lead our lives, to make sure that the drift isn't dictating where we go and that we are according to our values. Look, you don't need another time management hack or trick or tip, and you don't have a time management problem. But what you might have is you might have an alignment problem. Look, I've been there, pull into the driveway, you know, after work, you know, and you know, I'm sitting there, you know, in my truck for a brief second, and I'm about to go in the door, you know, and go home to my wife and my girls, and I'm just cooked. You know, I'm drained. You know, maybe you know, there's been plenty of times where, you know, I did the things at work. You know, I checked the boxes, I did the things, I moved the project forward, and you know, according to, you know, so my KPIs and my job duties and description and all that stuff, you know, I'm doing great, you know, crushing certain things, you know, had some meetings, made a new partnership, you know, whatever it is, you know, did the checklist. But at the end of the day, you know, I was just drained. You know, I had nothing left. I'm about to walk into the house and give what I truly value, what I value most, the leftovers of my day for, you know, the thing that's providing a paycheck. I believe that I do some meaningful work and have an impact, but at the end of the day, a job's a job. And I'm about to go into a house with the people that I truly love and offer them the leftovers. That's not what I want. I've been there trying to scrounge up that energy. And honestly, that's the drift, stealing away from me what is most important to give to the people that are most important. And I don't want to walk into that house and offer my family, people that I value most, my leftovers. And I don't want the same for you. So what are we going to do about it? Well, if you want to know about that transition period, you know, when you're going from work to home, or even if you're working from home, you got to transition from doing the work to the family. A few podcast episodes ago, you can look back. It was before the name change, under Claim Your Day podcast. I talked about some transition, some different things that you can do to own those transitions. Because when you can own those transitions, it'll help you to step into the next thing, event, or situation a whole lot better and a whole lot more refreshed. You go and look that up. But you know what? We're going to do more of that in these future episodes with the Lead Your Life podcast, which is a good little segue. So we did transition the podcast from Claim Your Day to Lead Your Life. I was wrestling with this for a while. I won't spend too much time, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you an update on it in case you missed, one of the last episodes and the updates. Because, Claim Your Day, it really does sound more like just managing a busy calendar. And that's not what this is about. I want this to be about leading our lives, according to our values and what's most important, and to really have those lives of impact and significance. And so those true significance, see, it starts with that higher standard. It starts with not being reactive, not succumbing to everybody else's emergencies and commitments and their expectations, but instead of living with intentionality to lead our lives with purpose according to our values. So Claim Your Day, I think some people, when they saw that, they thought, oh, this is about being productive. Oh, no. It's not about getting more things done. It's about getting the right things done and being intentional. It's about not just the discipline, but it's about designing our lives. So having design over discipline. If that makes any bit of sense to you or resonates with you, you're in the right place, my friend. So when we talk about leading our lives, and life leaders, leadership, it has a negative, or not a negative, it has an inaccurate, in my opinion, connotation, because most of the time we think about leadership, we think about corporate titles, managing a team, the number of direct reports that you have. But no, what it is leadership. Leadership really starts with self-leadership. It's about how we lead our lives and the impact that we have, how we show up at the dinner table. If you're leading your life well, then you're leading at home as well as at work. That's leadership. That's real leadership, in my opinion. Okay. So that's going to be what the Lead Your Life podcast is about. If that resonates with you, then you're in the right place at the right time, my friend, and I am glad that you're here. That's a little bit of the intro. I'll keep sharing some more as we move forward with this, but just know that it's all about the 1% shifts so we can lead our lives according to our values and our purpose to have that impact that we want to have. So how are we going to go about doing that? How are we going to really make sure that we're living according to our values? One great way, and that's kind of the first point for this episode, is really prioritizing the who over the what. See, in today's society, it's kind of like a performance trap, if you will, where being busy is almost like a badge of honor. Have you heard somebody talking and they're talking about how busy they are, and it's like they're kind of complaining, but it's like a fake complaining, and it's more of talking about how busy they are and like how, oh, I must be so important because I'm so busy. And it's this badge of honor of busyness. Well, look, that frantic activity, that is not. I don't want to succumb to trying to be proud of a frantic activity where I'm scrambling from one thing to the next, because you know what that is? That is the drift. The drift comes in there, and if you're scrambling and frantic, then you know what? You can't be intentional at the same time. See, and often, my opinion, is that frantic, crazy busyness. It's really just a slightly lazy cover up for a lack of clarity and purpose. Like when you're intentional, like there's power in being intentional. And intentional isn't the crazy frantic busyness. No. It is purposely moving forward toward what's most important. See, in here, we're going to shift this focus. We're going to shift this focus from what we're doing, all the boxes and the things to get checked off and all the tasks. We're going to shift our focus from that to who we want to become, who we want to be, the values that we're going to live by. That's the shift. That's one of the major shifts that we're going to talk about here. Because think about it. How fast you're moving doesn't matter if you're going in the wrong direction. So if you're going in the wrong direction, but you're going 100 miles an hour, you're just going to get far more off track than if you were going slow. So we don't want to do that at all. And this is where the true self-leadership comes in, is that it is about who over what. Who are you? What are your values? Who are you going to represent? Who are you going to bring to that meeting? Who are you going to be at home with your family? And it's about who you are, especially in this uphill climb. Because as John Maxwell says, everything worthwhile is uphill all the way. When you're climbing up that hill toward what's most important to you, who are you? Another way to think about this, who over what, it's the ladder that you're climbing. So if you at your job, great. You're working, you're performing. That is awesome. Do everything you do with excellence, 100%. But if you're going to sacrifice all your time, energy, and effort to climb that ladder, make sure it's leaning against the right wall. The last thing you want to do is to climb that corporate ladder, spend all that time, energy, effort, years, and dedication to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. Well, when you get clear on who you are and the person you want to be and the values that you have, then that will help you to make sure that the ladder you're climbing is the right one. It's going the right way. Look, I've been there a little bit. I'll share a quick little story. Not necessarily leaning against the wrong wall, but it was kind of. And this is a few years back, and there was a position that I was going for, and it was because it was the next step, in the trajectory of the career that I had at the agency that I was with, and I finally made that promotion. It was kind of neat because, in one aspect, it was rewarding because I missed the promotion one time, but then the next time, actually, they requested that I apply again, and I got it. Awesome. And I'm all for wherever you're at, strive to be and perform at your best. And that means pursuing the promotions. But you know what happened to me after that? I was checking the boxes. I was doing well. My supervisors and everybody was on board. Liked what I was doing. I was having an impact. Putting out fires, addressing the issues. Onboarding the people, doing all the things, building the team. Blah blah blah. But after a while, and I was just so drained, and I was putting in all the work and the effort, like I said, checking the boxes, aiming at those KPIs and doing all the things, following the SOPs. But I was so drained, and the kicker for me was it hit me. My family, the people most important to me, and the values that I want to live by. See. All that, it was getting my leftovers. And that's when it hit me. I was getting these accolades and positive reinforcement at work, but I was cooked. And the people that are most important to me, my family, they were really getting the leftovers where I was mentally and physically exhausted. And that's where I realized my ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. It didn't matter how efficient I was going to be, or, all the time management, hacks and tips and tricks and strategies. All that stuff didn't matter because I was still giving my family the leftovers. And maybe that resonates with you. Maybe it doesn't, but when we think about it, I really remember having a conversation with one of my supervisors about how I can get more efficient to just get all the things done. And I remember them telling me, you're never going to get all the things done. And it was mind blowing. It's like, well, what do you mean? So there's going to be all these expectations and there's not a chance to do them all? And they're like, well, no, you're never going to get it all done. It's okay. And you just got to prioritize and go. And look, I get to some degree, we're never going to accomplish all the things. But for me, how exhausted I was and giving my family the leftovers, that was impactful and eye-opening for me. So what can we do with this? If we need to prioritize the who over the what, who we want to be over just all the things and all the tasks that we're doing, what can we do? Well, that leads right into the second point for this episode. And that is, and it's something that John Maxwell says often, and that's you have to know yourself to grow yourself. Well, if we want to be the best versions of ourselves, if we want to lead our lives well, then we need to make sure that we're growing and growing in the right direction, so we can have that significance and that impact, and because real leadership, requires growth. So with this, it's not a bunch of woo woo, get in tune with your inner being and all that stuff. But we have to take a moment to know our values, to know who we are and who we want to become. That way we can make sure that we're being intentional with going in the right direction. Because see, growth, leadership, it's not going to happen by accident. No one's ever achieved all their goals, and when they are asked how they did it, they're like, I don't know, I just showed up here and it just happened. No. If you want to live out your values, you have to be intentional. So that starts with learning and knowing yourself. Do you know your top core values? Hey, your top 5 core values, do you know what they are? Can you rattle them off right now? Well, if so, if not, okay. If so, awesome. Definitely want to commend you on that. You're being intentional. That's wonderful. If not, okay, you're in the right place, my friend. We're going to dive into a lot of that in this podcast. That's what it's going to all be about. And then, in fact, I'm going to share with you something in just a few moments that will help you to dive more into that as well, to make sure that you just know you're in the right place. So what is the future of this podcast? What does the future of this podcast look like? Like I said, we're going to be talking about leading our lives, stopping the drift, living out our values. And your values might be a little bit different than mine. That's cool. I'm not going to tell you what you have to have your values to be. I'll share a little bit about me because I want to be transparent. That way you can know who this podcast host is and where some of my information is coming from, 100%. But if you have some different values, cool. That's not a problem at all. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, faith, family, freedom. I'll share a little bit about fitness, fulfillment, having that positive impact. Obviously, by now, you know that I'm about leadership, and growing myself personally, professionally, and having that impact and striving for significance. Those are just a few things that we're going to end up talking about here, all around the area of being intentional with our lives. But if some of that stuff differs for you, no worries, no problem at all. But the future episodes of this podcast will come out on a bi-weekly format. Okay, that means that every other week an episode is going to come out. If you've been with me for before the name change or any of my past podcasts over the years, a lot of times they are coming out on a weekly basis. But here's the major thing: we're going to shift to bi-weekly every other week because I want to make sure that I'm intentional with my time, that I'm honoring my values, with my family and the things that are most important to me. But also the kicker is that I want to create a community that will be just for you, the life leaders out there who want to stop the drift, live their values, and lead their lives. So with that, we're developing a community. It's on the school platform, but you can go to nickmazey.com/lifeleaders. Find out some more information there. Join in. We're going to talk about the podcast episodes, the specific 1% shifts that you can make to live out your values on a daily basis. We'll go into action steps that you can take after listening to the podcast episode, as well as one of the most important things, is that leadership. See, leadership can't happen in isolation. It's around the community. It's around the positive encouragement from each other that we're going to help build each other up so that we can all lead our own lives well according to each one of our values. And that happens within the community to be able to help. Now, look, podcasts are awesome. I love them. I listen to a whole lot of audio stuff because that's how I can learn throughout my day while I'm driving and the like. But kind of the rubber meets the road with the actions we take and the communities that we develop, because that's where we're going to help really be able to promote what we're doing, and it helps keep us on track with a little bit of accountability as well. So once again, you can go to nickmazey.com/lifeleaders, check out the community, see what's there, listen to the About video, contribute, join in, stop the drift, live your values, and lead your life. Look, as I mentioned it a little bit before, if you already know your top core values, awesome. If you want some help with that, in the Life Leaders community, in the Start Here section, I have a core values quick start. It's just a very simple guide to walk you through identifying your core values. Well, if you're asking, why do I need that? Oh, let me go ahead and tell you. If you think about the things that are most important to you, then you probably can go ahead and come up with some. But what's helpful sometimes is to think about it in different ways. You think about the positive side of it, what's most important to me. You think about the negative side of it. And I have some little scenarios to work through. So it's a very simple, and that's why I call it a quick start guide, because it is pretty simple. But it's short little exercises you can do that end up pulling out from different situations what your top core values are. Like if you have 35 top core values, it's going to be really hard to focus on them. You're probably going to get overwhelmed and not be able to keep track of them. That's why those top 5, 3 to 5, but the top 5 values, it helps you to keep them in the front of your mind so you know you're living them out on a daily basis. So once again, you can go to nickmazey.com/lifeleaders, join the community, start living out your values on a daily basis, stop that drift, my friend, and lead your life. That's what it's all about. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode, and I can't wait to talk to you in the next one. I'll see you in 2 weeks, but I'll see you in the Life Leaders community before then. All right. Take care.